Hola. Hello.
Hi, here we are having dinner with Ruth and Maria,
Hello.
dear old friends,
Mm-hmm.
and we're catching them in a transition from this house to another one, and back from a big journey from Greece and from Greece to here. They're very committed people, very committed to making this world better and more livable, and working with difficult situations, with people who are have suffered a lot. And it's a real pleasure to be here with them now, and to be with you and with them.
Yeah. We are very happy to share with you our company in this pre-Christmas food, no, or lunch, I would say. Yes, they have very inspired lives. We want to talk with them just about life and the things they are doing. We hope you enjoy. Yeah, it's a good example of young people doing beautiful things. So, hello, what are you doing? If you can say something to them, if you don't mind, then we can follow with our lunch and talking with our conversation. What are you doing? Yeah. Ruth or Maria?
Okay. So I'm Ruth, as you both know. And firstly, before I say what we're doing, I just wanted to give a bit of context to where we met, which might also give a bit of context to how we come to be sitting here together now.
Okay.
And also maybe it also tells the story slightly of what we're doing. So in 2013, Maria and I were both at a place called Schumacher College, where Shantana also was working, and we met and had a very strong connection, and we were really inspired by the work that Shantana was bringing to Schumacher College, which is a small college in Devon that focuses on E.F. Schumacher's work and Tagore's work. Maria was studying a master's in economics for transition, and I was volunteering. And since then, Maria and I, we met then and fell in love, and then have continued over this last 10 years to explore some of the themes that we first connected over when we were in Dartington, in Schumacher and Dartington Hall. And some of those things, I think, like initially, like feminism was a very big aspect. Like I remember our first ever conversation was we entered into very much in the heart of things that we're interested in now, how we understand social justice, how we understand our place in the world, what responsibility we feel we have to live our lives in a way that's aligned with our values and our morals. I'll pass over.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was at Schumacher College, I already came from 10 years of experience working in the Red Cross, so involved in social issues, one could say, and that's where I thought I could kind of like bring my values to life through going to communities and countries that are suffering from some of the decisions and some of the history of our countries, the Western countries. So that was my first attempt, but I felt a dissonance after some years between what I was doing what I what I was doing and what I wanted to be doing, you know. So that contrast between my values and my vision and the practice that I saw happening, led me to take to move away from that, go to reflect, went to Schumacher College, and then I think one of the key things that stayed with me and in our practice today was this shift from a more predict and control mentality, linear ways of thinking about change, the idea that that we can reduce reality into different parts, and by this kind of level of specialization and dissection we can actually enact change in a particular way. And when I started looking into holistic science and like some of the things that you brought, some of the things that you work on, that talks another story about how living systems work and how humans work, how societies work, how change happens. So that was for me mind blowing. That another way of thinking and feeling was much more responsive and in coherence with what actually I saw change happening. I saw communities occurring. I saw my experience of it.
Yeah.
So that kind of like phenomenological approach, that kind of like more relational approach, the understanding that complexity, uncertainty are elements that are within us, within our lived experience, that we need to kind of like embrace that in order to flow with change and life better, was kind of like central to our work.
Wow. Yeah, very interesting. I was realizing when you were talking that we both, we four are working with change, but from different points of view. Because when we work with the I Ching is the book of changes. So so you were talking about all of this complexity, change, and so on, and then yes, of course we are working the same things, but in with different tools. No?
And you brought this approach, this openness to change, to situations which were not maybe ready for it. And but how's your experience been here in Spain, for example, and working for change, and working for a more collective perspective on things?
I will start, but then please will continue. I mean, after Schumacher, one of the we were eager to start putting things into practice. So new, this kind of like transformation that we have, kind of like this different way of seeing. We wanted to kind of create projects, do things outside in the world with the issues that we were concerned about, but differently. And so we set up a project called the Heroles Project that was kind of inspired in the artist residencies, where artists come together and then things become, people
Beautiful.
Create. It's very horizontal, it's very messy, it's very programmed and planned, but there is a thread and an intention of people coming together that enables something to happen.
So we went there.
You were
Do you
there, and
remember?
that's where we met you as well.
One year, Christmas, no, summertime.
So that was our first exploration, and also it was bringing kind of like both my kind of more political project, kind of strategy, my interest, and also my expertise, leadership, culture, looking at these elements together with art and creativity, which are not separate. So it's other ways of coming to think about climate justice, to think about migration. So that first project, there was this kind of artist, activist, scientist, people coming together to explore on a topic, led us to explore on a topic, but not for it to stay in this beautiful residency and community that we create, but to actually do something in the world. So perhaps unclear, and then after the residencies, things materialized in concrete projects. And one of those materializations was La Bolina, a project that was looking at that looks at migration and looking at the root causes of migration. We come to create this new experiment in a way. I don't know if you wanna talk a bit more about it.
Yeah. So right now we're in Brestaval, which is in a small village in El Valle, which is south of Granada, kind of close to where you both live, about half an hour drive. And this is the place where we based the project of La Bolina, this experiment, as you called it. And the villages have a particular quality in that they there's a lot of small farming communities that the main kind of way that people earn money is through farming. Less and less Spanish people are trying to cultivate vegetables, and there's just in the province next to us in María, a huge amount of farming that is starting to kind of since the 70s, that has been farming at an industrial scale that feeds Europe. And so one of the things that we were interested in from the very beginning was this intersection between human rights and environmental climate change or environmental impact. And so La Bolina really is situated in exactly the centre of these two. And so we've worked, because the people who are working in Almería in these greenhouses mainly are people with a migrant background who have migrated into Spain and who live in very precarious in situations of modern day slavery. And so the idea was to create a sort of small scale like an alternative, like how can we try to create, like what are the necessary ingredients that we can explore that create something that is happening at a local level here in Brestaval and the surrounding villages, that that brings people who have migrated together with local people, which shares also a lot of the knowledge that's getting lost from the older people who are here, who used to have land, whose children now have migrated themselves from these local villages in Spain to go to live in cities to have jobs that are more high profile. So it was really like this sense of trying to make farming and regenerating land something that was at the centre, at the heart of what we did, and to do that with people who were the most discriminated in terms of were traditionally and still, you know,
well, with less rights
oppressed,
or no rights at all.
Yeah.
When they come here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see a change in the time during the time you have been here with this commitment? What do you see now? If you look at the past, at the beginning of the project, and you realize that, what about 4 years?
5 years.
5 years.
Nearly 6, I think we've been here, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Time is
How would
goes
you
very quickly.
describe the impact of
Yeah.
your work through this time?
It's interesting because I was thinking about the word experiment, and the word that people could think, oh wow, you don't experiment with people, you don't do things as an experiment, but how can you do something different than an exploration and an experimentation, an attempt, when nothing, when impacts or future cannot be predicted, you know? So like starting from that point is why we call it experiment, because it's an attempt to do something, and as we do, we see the changes. We've been adapting to the different phases the project has had. you know, not attached to a story, but attached to the story that was being created. So I wanted to say that, and I wanted also to say that in terms of impact, it's interesting. I think we haven't seen much until we have taken a little bit of time off. And I think what I could say now is there is I don't know, around 6 families living here in some of the houses that we had before, and other places. Nearly 4, I think, pregnant as well.
Wow.
So one of the aims of the project is like, how can we create you know, new cultures and repopulate with not integrating people, but creating new cultures through interculturality, no? Some of these people are not from Spain, and some people are from the Gambia, some people are from Argentina, from other parts of the world and other parts of Spain. And I don't want to say that this is because of us, I just want to say that this has happened.
I'd say like another really key impact would be in terms of the people who have worked with La Bolina, is that we've supported through employment 8 people over the 6 years that we've been running to gain their residency papers here in Spain, which is huge. It's insignificant in terms of what the number of people who are facing very unjust systemic racism within the wider system of gaining their papers. But through, on a very small scale in this tiny project, we've managed to support 8 people to be able to now live and work in Spain legally, and to be able to move on. So La Bolina, in a way, for them has been a springboard where they've come, they've worked with us for a year or 2 years, and then been a part of the co-creation of the project in itself. So they've not been just people who have been employed by La Bolina, but been a central part in dreaming the project. They've been involved in all of the social and cultural activities that the project has done.
And talking and giving presentations and conferences, so like in a way, when becoming, you know, not just a worker in the land so you get your papers, it's like more like belonging to something that relates to your principles and values.
That's amazing. That's something
to other voices.
I think another thing that for me is interesting in this exploration has been what happens when we
take my layers off. You see how many layers of grey I'm wearing?
Actually, we are eating a wonderful muffin. Huh?
Yeah. So, which is a Gambian dish, well, from Senegal and Gambia, which was cooked by James yesterday in one of the markets, the kind of Christmas market that La Bolina hosted and ran, and so the street next to where we are now was full of different market stalls, and James, who's from the Gambia, cooked this delicious dish that people from all around, local people from many different villages were coming and buying, and so that in a way it's not necessarily an impact, but it's not even something that we've probably thought about, but it's interesting to acknowledge that 6 years ago there were no people from other cultures who were selling food here, or like, you know, being able to kind of have a moment where they were presenting a different types of different food from different parts of the world, and now it's so through many different events and all of these, that it's so not only is it like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have some food, it's like the local people are like, hey James, how are you? Like giving him a big hug, and then so that level of people becoming part of the social fabric of what it is to be a member of the society here.
I think this relates with one, because we didn't know what activities, but we had an intention. So this is also, you know, like the shift in terms of like, how do we think about doing projects or going about change. It's more, okay, so an intention has been guiding us, and definitely that kind of multicultural coming together, sharing was an intention. And also that intention came with maybe an idea or a theory of what happens when we de-institutionalize solidarity. What happens when we bring about or think about solidarity in a more communal level, where we move from professionalism to radical friendship.
Wow.
And those has been central questions in our exploration.
So beautiful. Right?
How did the local people experience, respond?
I think generally the local people here have been incredibly supportive of the project. There's really, when we first moved here, there were very few young people, young families. The population is generally much older, people who have lived here all of their lives, or expats. So, and I use this word in a way that's sort of distinguishing. I also am a migrant here. I'm also an expat here. I'm also a member of the community here. And so, depending on how I choose to label myself, or how people see me or label me, because I have white skin, because I come from a Northern European country, I have a whole different set of privileges or ways of being understood than if I was coming from another part of the world. If I was coming from a country in Africa, if I was a black woman, my experience here and who I was seen to be would be quite distinctly different. Having said that, the local people, I think, have been incredibly receptive. Both the Northern European, American people who have come either as tourists or who come for the winters here, or who have chosen to move to the area full time, or the local people who have been here generations and generations. Like, we've really found that there's been a curiosity and an interest in what the project is. I definitely think at the beginning there was a kind of it wasn't, I think, clear to the local people exactly what we were doing, who we were, what we were doing. So I think we were considered as this kind of like, this strange, quirky gathering of grouping of people. We lived together, 12 of us, of all many different nationalities from different parts of the world, different languages, in one big house. And so that was the moment where everyone in the village knew of the house, this kind of like, but exactly what we were doing, people I don't think have understood. And yet through political support locally, through running events, this was another thing. We'd often put on events in the first years. We'd put on events expecting that local people would attend, and then local people weren't attending, and then realising, okay, no, what we need to do is really listen, and we need to listen to what is going on and go to the events that are already happening here, to go and so I remember some beautiful moments of cooking migas, which is a local dish, with lots of brilliant sat around, I was in the garlic cutting station. You can imagine a whole table of garlic, and we were cutting garlic.
We were preparing migas for the fiestas of the village, for everyone.
Oh, wow.
All the women together there, cooking, laughing, chatting.
Of all ages. So there is something very bonding that happens when you're sat cutting garlic for hours, and then these kind of big pans and this kind of process of cooking this dish that then will be eaten by the community, and not just being members of the community that are coming to eat the dish, but being part of the group who are cooking.
And I think this is, and you can make questions as well, because we start and then we don't stop. But I think this is also, it talks a little bit about the importance of the small movements, the small things.
Amazing. I like that.
And how that fractally perhaps shows in other levels, other scales. No? And also, how would, if I would have been a worker, you know, that if I separate myself from what is work and what is life and what is leisure time and what is this kind of fraction, that this kind of modern way we live now, how do we understand how we spend our time? Would have I been doing that with the women there? Would have I considered that professional enough? Would have I put perhaps my free time in doing that if I was considered that was a job, you know? So this is also important in terms of like how do we think about work, I think, and that's something that we've been exploring.
That's very interesting, I think, no? Because it's about living. And living, what is, how can we live, no? The first thing is living with all around us, no? I think. And then, okay, we will see, but of course, the things around, the people around, the resources around, everything around you is what it is asking to you to live, no? To live with. So
I think also having a sense, I think both Maria and I have a sense of strategy and a sense of ambition. So there is this tension, I think, sometimes that we've found with complexity, with emergent properties, with emergent processes, with working on a small scale and with what is around us. Although I absolutely agree that it is the foundation. I think without having maybe it's just part of our personalities. Both of us have this kind of this drive to see more systemic change happen. So,
and this is the interesting thing, that they are not separate.
They're not separate.
That intention and attention and the small and living within the ecosystem of what's going on needs to be together. We cannot separate intention and strategy from the other kind of like qualities of life, of change, of community, you know?
Yeah. I like very much that. Yeah, I love what you are talking about.
A very organic process. I'm reminded of Lao Tzu saying, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the ground under your feet. And it feels like you've been very much in touch with the ground under your feet. So a different notion of how change came about. We know that the approach to the macro scale gets sometimes devoured by politics, and so it feels to me like you're acting like on a different level, like a different type of strategy, which is not even a strategy, it's like your life.
I would love to hear more about how this resonates with the Tao Te Ching and with what you do and how you see your work.
Totally, I would say, since we are living in a mountain, and then the ecosystem around, and I include, of course, neighbors, and gardening, and the strong presence of earth. Is ¿cómo se dice? Nos está moldeando.
It's shaping us.
It's shaping us, yes. Some of the things that I am realizing is that, the simplicity as a core of life, you know, which means simplicity is not something easy. It's maybe something very complex, but is to be aligned with the rhythm in which you are in, you know. It's living with the things, the people, everything around you, no? And just doing that. I think I am growing and growing. Yes, I like very much, and I feel very inspired with the things you are talking about. Because yes, I think it's we are talking or we are living the same thing from different ecosystems. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, what do you think?
Schumacher, the person who gave the name to the college, his book is called Small is Beautiful. And approaching change through the small is also like what we're inspired to.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And a great support is the presence of nature so strongly there. It's constant learning, and it's constant marveling at the mystery of this web of life that we're all part of. And it's like appreciating and developing the relationship with the web of life. It seems to me it's also a theme of your work. An inspiring idea.
That's true. And just one more thing, because we can have a lot of ideas, but of course nature will tell us which ideas will go on. So in some, so we have to be humble. And not to try to be under control of everything. It's just as you said, there is an intention of us to be there and to do the best. But then, every day is different. The landscape change, different people comes. So we can't. We only can live being open to what's going around.
I think it's interesting because I feel like the way we have gone about this project has been looking at life, the life processes of what we were doing and the responses we were having from the context. And the context, I'm saying the people that have migrated that work with us, the local people, the land, the climate, the political context. So like we had this intention and that vision that we work quite a lot on, in the sense of like making it visible, seeing it, and having it here. But then how to get there was much more about nature, the natural context, including humans, non-humans, politics, economy, and all that. And being responsive to that and being able to kind of like work towards that vision in the ways in which was possible. And I'm very interested because this creates a tension that a lot of people don't really, that they seem to put it as dichotomies. This kind of like letting yourself flow with chaos, with spontaneity in the bad sense, taking us something bad, and this kind of like lack of sense, lack of rigor, lack of, and actually it's the contrary. I feel it's totally the contrary. We need to like break that dichotomy between what people think about order, control, as
being rigorous,
and taking you from A to B, in the scientific,
unpredictable,
the scientific paradigm that will, that will take you there. With this other way of approaching is another way of thinking, and my experience having done both is that not only I feel much more alive and happy with this one, but also I have seen impacts that resonate more with my intentions than some of the things that I did in the past.
And also because you're responding live in each moment, so it's not that you set a plan and then you're just following a script. regardless of the consequences, regardless of all of the harm that might be being caused, both environmentally and to other people, whether that's in your local team or with neighbours or on a much larger sort of system scale. But it's like making these small adjustments, and I think this is where the rigorous part really comes in. It's like you by listening and by then learning how to adapt, and you have to be awake all the time. You have to be really paying attention to the exchanges, like exactly how I speak to you has an impact on how you receive how I speak, and then that has an impact on the next step in the conversation, and how present I am to really be able to listen deeply to what's going on underneath the layers of the threads of this conversation will enable me to propose a question that takes us deeper, or just go through the same level of like repeating on a surface. And these changes, I think, really is going back to what you were saying about the about small, that actually one of the things that we were noticing in some of the workshops we were leading in Greece recently with migrant solidarity groups in Athens was exactly around their struggle to change things on a systemic level, their utter frustration with these systems that are inhumane, and that there's like one policy and it's widespread and it impacts thousands of people's lives who have migrated to Greece, and it prevents like the certain policies that prevent a human connection. But what we were exploring through theatre and through different complexity games was how is it possible to create small openings within that rigidity, within the system that feels so sort of enclosing and trapping, shutting down. Like, how is it possible to give a few more seconds pause, and then the response that comes maybe is slightly different, and then that maybe has a slight different way that then the police officer or the judge in whatever case is able to respond, is able to kind of listen or to act from a different place.
I'm glad you mentioned theatre, because I know
Yes.
I know you're fond of theatre,
Yeah.
and it's one of your tools.
Yeah.
Would you say something about the specific theatre as a way of reflection, of change?
Yeah. I mean, I love talking about this.
And the work with the body.
Yeah, and the work with the body.
Yeah.
So yeah, for many years I've been focused on social theatre. I'm influenced by the work of Augusto Boal, the Theatre of the Oppressed, and also many different types of practices that use embodiment or somatic practices. So I've trained also in social presencing theatre, which is another strand, which is really again using the body-mind intuition as a way of deepening how we are not only responding from a mental we initially hear something and then we respond straight away, but it's really allowing us to kind of drop into a sense of our presence and the intuition of what this incredible it's an incredible thing that we have always with us, our bodies, the information that's available to us if we really kind of allow ourselves to open into it. And I think that this is, again, it's a small shift, but that can have really big impacts. And using theatre is, for me, is creating spaces where people can come together to collaborate, to explore and to rehearse something that they might then go on to do in real life. So in the context of a workshop, in the context of a safe space where we're exploring very complex issues of racism, of oppression, of what it is where you have been deceived, what it is where you don't get what you want, where someone else is controlling your future. How can we explore these different scenes and allow people to step into the shoes of other people, so to take part in different characters who are in the scene and to imagine what they might be feeling in their bodies, both the person who is experiencing the oppression and also the people who are oppressing, you know? So there's another language that we've been using recently of agents and targets, which comes from an amazing theorist called, I forget her name, Leticia Nieto. And so she kind of poses that we are, in any given situation, we could be an agent for change, or we could be being targeted. So this kind of shift, I think it's much more accurate, plural, fractal in a way, than using oppressed and oppressor, because this is kind of, again, a dichotomy, but it kind of opens up that language to start thinking of much more of a spectrum of where in certain situations I, as a woman in a same-sex relationship, as a lesbian, as I can be a target, but in other situations that I, as someone who's white, as someone who has privilege, who has money, who has education, could also be I could be an agent to support people who are targets, you know? So that we can shift depending on the situation that we're in. We can shift. It was a bit like before when I was saying that here people we could use the word expat, or I'm also here living in another country and I've migrated, you know? So these are kind of, I think, like it helps us to explore, and I think using theatre also helps us to explore what it is when we step into the shoes of these different roles, and we start to understand that we could have been born anywhere in society, you know? We could have been born into anybody, literally into any part of the world, and we take it for granted that we are exactly who we are in our body, that we like all of the different limitations and all of the different possibilities that we have with our own body and our own education. And if we don't allow a space to be able to connect to, you said earlier about the web as being part of a web of life, and if I think it's for me, like taking part in social theatre, or the process of making theatre together, helps us to understand that our position within this very interconnected web can change at any moment, and then what's our responsibility then with that, like as someone who is able-bodied, who has privilege, who has the ability to step in. How do I use that? And then so this also links to another question that we've been asking a lot around positionality, and who am I? Like, when is it okay for me to take the space politically to speak on behalf of someone else's oppression or difficulty, and when do I need to reshape what the space actually is so that they can step in themselves to take more of a leadership role? And I think that's the work that we've been doing a lot over these last few years, rather than stepping in ourselves, is looking at how we can create, what is it that we need to do within our societies to create more space to support people to be able to step in, to share their voice, to share their narrative.
I guess I want to say something about intuition and creativity. And I think, I mean, you just mentioned a couple of things, no? Like, where can we change the situation? And is if in a moment I am able to respond differently to you, then you perhaps will respond differently to me, and then the whole situation changes. So in the small, no? We were talking about the small. This is not to disregard systems of oppression, structural, that you know, that is not only about individuals making small moves, it's also about something else that needs to happen at other levels as well. So this is one thing I wanted to say. No, like every time is a new beginning, but in order to be the possibility for change, what are the qualities that you need to work in yourself? And that's where I think this kind of way of working requires quite a lot of transformation in ourselves. Because in order for me to see that there is a space of another possible response, I have had to question my automatic response, first of all. I would have had to feel in my body that there is something different, that there is something difficult that I want to respond to. And then I would have had to be able to make a spontaneous move of doing something different. So in that, we are practicing. We need to become more present to ourselves, more knowing of ourselves, seeing our ways of seeing. We need to also become more empathic and compassionate in the way I'm relating to the other. And also I need to be creative in the ways in which I am going to respond.
And courageous, I think.
And then courageous as well, yeah, of course.
So quite a few challenges.
Yeah, whatever changes, and I think that's why I think it's very important to work on oneself as well as.
Yeah, I sorry, just a moment. That speaks to me like I Ching, you know.
Yeah.
We can talk later about that, but I don't want to forget that. So sorry.
And the only thing I wanted to add is this thing about intuition, because Ruth has talked about the body, no? And people say, people sometimes think, oh yeah, you work in the body because then you are better with yourself. No. Intuition is crucial in order to understand things that are not tangible. We need to train again other intelligences that are more in contact with those things that are present but are not tangible, and you know, like life processes. Observing like a farmer. A farmer is not controlling what all of the elements in the ecosystem is doing. It's just having a sense. It's understanding the context. It's getting knowledge from the past, but it has an intuition. It has a hunch that he's going to try this thing in here. And intuition, in a way, is a capacity to see complexity. In a way, it's a capacity to understand complexity that the rational mind is not so capable of. You know? So, like, if we have all those intelligences playing with us, for us, then we are much more capable of understanding differently what we need to become, what we need to understand better, actually.
Wow, that's amazing, because this is, in a sense, the same way in which we work with the I Ching, because it has two different steps, and needs to deal with two different intelligences. First one is to have the capacity to be present, to listen what the image that you have in front of you is telling to you, and then it will trigger an intuition. Then, so this is the first step, and the second one is the interpretation of this, is the philosophical thing, and then you put in action the things that you have received and you have understand in a intuitional level, no? So it's like very similar, and I love that. Yeah, what do you think? Is it?
Yeah, I think there are similarities.
Yeah.
And it's like both in a ways have to do with like not being conditioned by pre-existing models, systems, ideas, having that openness, a sensitivity to a message that comes to us in a different language. And as you said, like opening up to really hearing is also opening up to a dialogue. So
It's similar, yeah. Okay, so if you want to say a little bit more, but our mafe is almost,
finished. There
almost
is-
done. Yeah.
Second round. I wanted to say two things to close. One is I hope it resonates because you have been very inspiring for us. Not only through talking about the I Ching and talking about social and global issues, talking about quantum physics and spirituality, but also how you live your life and how coherent it is with what you think and you love and you believe. And secondly, I hope, I don't think, I mean, we are in the middle of a process because you were saying, not being conditioned with models. I mean, we fall and fall again, and we make mistakes, and we.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah. So we are in a journey but we are very happy that we are in this difficult and passionate, but very.
Inspiring.
Inspiring. This journey that we are in.
Yeah, new exploration, no? In front of you. Okay, we love you. You know,
And
we will miss you.
Thank you very much for
Yes.
hosting us here.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels very special also to, because there's something about, I'm glad that you brought in the personal, because there's something about how we see and understand our relationship that has been very inspired by the way that you also, I know we called you our mentors of love. That we had this sense of that you were both so present in our wedding and so have supported us in through many moments that have, when we've done the I Ching with you both, in many moments that have been very significant in our lives to support us in guiding and continuing this commitment to each other in our relationship, but also into the work that we our purpose, our calling in life on a wider level. So it does feel very significant that just days before we are making such a big journey now on to changing country, having a baby. Really many things that are changing, but that we keep this connection that we it feels there's a lot of love.
We will miss you a lot of, but anyway, we are very happy about your new step or exploration journey. Okay, so thank you so much for this wonderful mafe.
Well, and to James.
And
to
table.
James,
Thank you, James. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. We hope ciao ciao.
Goodbye.
Merry Christmas. No, Happy Christmas time and Happy New Year.
And solstice.
And solstice, yes, in
Coming up very
2
soon.
days. Okay, so ciao.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Así es.
Nice.
Yeah.